Cassandra collapsed onto the couch, no longer able to bear the weight of her thoughts. Her head hung low as her fingers worked feverishly, pressing against her temples, attempting to provide relief from the frantic drumming inside her skull. Would she be fired? The torturous question repeated in her mind, causing the drumming to intensify. Less than 12 hours ago, Cassandra felt secure in her position as an acquisitions analyst at Triton Industries. At 32, she was ambitious and driven, an overcomer, living proof that black women had to work 3 times harder than everyone else. Despite being the first to arrive at the office and the last to leave, Cassandra lived on a pendulum, from being unseen to scrutinized at a microscopic level. But she always adapted, adjusted, and maneuvered past the special set of unwritten rules for her kind. Her big brown eyes focused on the future that included goals of breaking glass ceilings and rising to VP of acquisitions before the age of 40. Also, she planned to eliminate food deserts in underserved communities through her charitable work. Her drive wasn't fueled only by ambition, but by the love and dedication to her family. After her mother had a stroke 5 years ago, Cassandra became her caretaker and took on the responsibility of getting her little brother through college. But life often shifts in an instant, and that pendulum swung Cassandra into new territory. After today's events, her sure footing on what she thought was a rock solid foundation transformed into quicksand, sinking her into the unknown abyss of fear and worry. She needed to sort things out. There was only one person she knew could help her. Julia removed her reading glasses, revealing eyes that seemed to see inside one's soul with just a glance. The only hint of her 62 years was a short salt and pepper afro, but cut youthfully. She was a mother and a widow who raised her children and many others in the neighborhood where Cassandra grew up. Ushering in and out of her home were frequent visitors who often sought wisdom and guidance. Others came simply to soak in the peace that permeated the air in her home. Cassandra showed up at Julia's doorstep, unusually quiet for her talkative nature, and distressed, with tension and fear radiating from her body like nuclear waste. Julia set a cool glass of water along with a plate of her famous chocolate chip cookies on the table. With trembling hands, Cassandra reached for the glass of water, spilling a good portion on her shirt and jacket before it ever reached her mouth. Julia grabbed the glass, placing it on the table, then sat beside Cassandra, gently cupping Cassandra's hands inside of her own. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Cassandra dropped her shoulders. "I'm scared that I might lose my job, and you know I take care of Mom and pay Scooby's tuition." Like a deflating balloon, she released, explaining that the executive team at her job was considering a highly coveted new acquisition. The data that she and her team compiled would heavily influence that decision. The project was extremely important and could mean another promotion for Cassandra, who was project lead. This morning, Cassandra was in the beginning of her presentation when she clicked on a slide and was already mid-sentence when realizing that the graph didn't align with her talking points. "What the heck?" she thought, seeing the strange slide, but understanding there was no time to investigate. She quickly recovered, brushing past it, then clicked through to the next slide, which was wrong as well. Her heart dropped and her eyes widened in horror, with each slide revealing jumbled data and diagrams. It looked like child's play from a 2-year-old, Nothing like the polished quality work that she had worked overtime to prepare. Something was fishy. Facing the grumblings and heated stares of the CEO and other members of the executive team, she fumbled out an excuse, apologizing profusely for the mix up when her boss Ted ran to the podium, calling her teammate Charles to take over. Her mouth fell open to protest, wanting to clear up the misunderstanding. But she didn't make these kinds of mistakes, and these were not her slides. But she quickly stopped mid sentence, seeing the seriousness in Ted's eyes. Reluctantly, she took a chair at the back of the room, internally pouting as Charles began the presentation. She noticed that while the formatting of the slides were different, the data, her data, was correct. The gloat on Charles's face told her everything she needed to know. He set her up. He was always trying to upstage her, and he finally succeeded. But if she couldn't prove that he sabotaged her presentation, forget a promotion, she would be fired. When the meeting ended, Cassandra rushed to her office, immediately discovering that the thumb drive used for the presentation had been switched. She hadn't noticed it before because it was the same brand and color, but it was not hers. Missing was the letter C that she etched onto the outer casing, a practice she started long ago for all her external drives. She also found the suspicious presentation on her work laptop, confirming that she had been hacked. The only time that the computer was not in her possession was at her lunch break the day before, but her office door was locked. So, how did he get access? Her investigation was interrupted by a call requesting her presence on the fifth floor to see Randy Fletcher, the current VP of Acquisitions. The corner office was brilliant, with enough space to fit a full-sized apartment, with lots of sunlight flooding through the ceiling to floor windows. Already seated in a chair in front of Randy's large wooden executive desk was Bert Simmons, the human resources director. Standing against the wall was Ted, her manager. There were no smiles, only disappointed faces, like parents sitting in the principal's office, hearing that their child had been skipping class for the entire semester. The feeling was different for Cassandra, who only ever received praise for exceeding expectations. She stiffened, the muscles in her shoulders locked into tight knots. Instinctively, she held her breath like a freediver 20 meters down in the deep. Immediately, Randy pelted Cassandra with questions about the presentation that were borderline accusations, often throwing around the word negligence. Bert remained eerily silent. His piercing blue eyes followed her every gesture and expression, most likely sizing her up. Despite the stream of sweat rolling down her back, hidden underneath her designer suit jacket, Cassandra maintained a confident front while answering every question with ease. She stopped looking for Ted to vouch for her since he had yet to open his mouth. Cassandra was on her own, but that was nothing new. She held her ground, refreshing their memories about her work ethic and her contributions to the company. She removed the thumb drive from her pocket, placing it onto Randy's desk. Someone deliberately replaced my thumb drive with this one to make me look bad. She pointed to the unblemished plastic case. I carved the initial C in all my drives, have been doing it for years. Ted picked up the drive, examined it, and placed it back onto the desk with realization in his eyes. He then agreed, "You're right. You have always done that. Also, I believe my laptop was hacked. I left it locked in my office during my lunch yesterday, and the thumb drive was in my desk drawer. I've only produced excellent work for Triton, and I can assure you that what you saw this morning was not my doing. She couldn't tell if they believed her claims, but after more discussion about it, Randy ended the meeting, promising to investigate. Despite delivering the truth, she left the meeting unsettled, perplexed, and worried. Auntie, I need your help. What do I do? Julia pushed out her lips and narrowed her focus on Cassandra. You may not want to hear this, but let it go. Let it go? How? They might fire me over this. Right, and there is nothing to do about it right now but wait. If there is action to take once they make their determination, you'll know what to do. But later, right now, you must accept that this is out of your control and reclaim your peace. I don't know if I can do that. Let me tell you a story. Long before we opened the Zora Neale Hurston Community Center at its current location, I had my eye on another building located about 10 minutes from here. Every time we drove past it, I would tell my Daniel how perfect it would be for the center. It was spacious, sitting on 3 acres of land, large enough to host cookouts, plant a community garden, and bring the kids together for sporting activities. For years, every time I saw it, I say to myself, one day. So you can imagine my excitement when it went up for sale. I made an offer right away, and to my delight, they accepted. We started going through the process, escrow, inspections, and paperwork, all of that stuff. I started planning how I would bring my vision to life. I was on top of the moon. Then, maybe 2 weeks into escrow, I received a frantic call from my agent saying that the sellers were pulling out of the deal. Lord have mercy. My heart sank to the pit of my stomach. I said, oh no, they are not. There was no way I was walking away without a fight. I called mutual friends and colleagues to intervene. I threatened to sue. I even went to the seller's home and begged them to reconsider, but they would not budge. I was so upset. You have no idea. I kept thinking there has to be something that I can do, but everything I tried failed. All I could do was pray that they would change their minds. Then when I was looking through the Bible, I came across Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Julia found the scriptures in the worn brown leather Bible and turned it towards Cassandra, pointing, Here, read this. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Julia held up the Bible. It was this scripture that made me realize I was handling the situation all wrong because I was operating in fear and worry instead of faith. I was so tired and frazzled, much like you are right now. Then something inside of me said, let it go. I proclaimed that I had faith, but wasn't acting like it. I said, okay, Lord, I hear you. I trust you will do what's best. Whatever happens, happens. Then I left it alone, and I had peace about it. And you will never guess what happened. What? They changed their minds? No, not long after. On the day that we were supposed to close escrow, I lost my job. Forced early retirement. You're kidding. No, I'm not. I realized had I bought that building, I would have been up a creek without a paddle, because with my Daniel being gone, I needed that job to supplement the mortgage payments on the building. Then, the next day, the craziest thing happened. I received a call from my goddaughter, who was awarded a property in her divorce settlement, a massive building located downtown. She offered it to me rent free. I would be responsible for only the utilities and upkeep. And here I was, losing my everlasting mind, trying to control a situation that was bigger than me. But God knew. He knew I was going to lose my job. And look how He fixed it. Put me in a situation better than the one that I had planned for myself. But most importantly, I learned how to exercise my faith by bringing my worries and fears to Him. Cassandra took a few minutes to soak in Julia's words, then reflected on how sick she was making herself feel from worrying. She hadn't eaten a drop of food all day. Right at that moment, her mindset shifted and she decided to trust God. He had always taken care of her, and this situation was no different. Cassandra closed her eyes and said a silent prayer. After she finished, she smiled. Thanks. I needed to hear that. And you're right. I let this thing get to me, but no more. If they don't believe me, then I don't need to work there anymore. I will take my talent elsewhere. I'm letting it go, and I'm giving it to God. Julia beamed. Now there's my girl. Cassandra's eyes lit up when spotting the cookies. A loud rumble from her stomach followed. She grabbed one and shoved the entire thing into her mouth. Oh, this is so good, she garbled while chewing. 5 days later, Cassandra learned that Charles was behind the sabotage, just as she had thought. Ted had the security footage pulled and saw Charles entering Cassandra's office during her lunch, just as she had said. When confronted with the footage, he confessed to being jealous of Cassandra. He was fired, and she received a promotion. In this story, we learned that worrying is a thief that is only good for robbing us of our precious peace. When a situation is out of your control, step back, have faith, and let it go by giving it to God. Thanks for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please subscribe, like, and share. Until next time.